And this woman came up to me and she says, Devon, can I pull you aside for a second? I'm like, yes, ma'am. She says, I just got to tell you, you took us on a roller coaster. And I was like, what do you mean a roller coaster? She's like, well, sometimes you were up and sometimes you were down and you were never just at one level. And it made it really easy to want to pay attention to you.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Impact Through Voice. I'm your host, Lisa Hugo, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have a very special guest with us today. He is no stranger to the stage. He is one of the world's most renowned, most loved, most booked MCs. So wonderful to have you on the podcast, Devon Brown.
Ladies and gentlemen, get on your feet and welcome to the stage your MC for the event, Mr. Devon Brown.
Have I pronounced it correctly?
Yes, it's Devon. I get Devon all the time, but it is Devon. You are correct.
Well, fantastic to have you here. And thank you for taking the time to share, because I think you've got some incredible experience and expertise and tips to share with my audience. Why don't we start by, you take us back. How did it all start for you?
You know, it's funny how the universe prepares you for things early on, and you're not able to connect the dots until you look back, and see how they were all connected. Being on stage started for me as a hip hop dancer back when I was frequenting nightclubs and doing hip hop battles in Atlanta, and when I went to a university as well. But the whole MC thing started when, in about 2006, when I was in LA with my boss. I was at an event. You know the book Chicken Soup for the Soul?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was at the author of that book is authors, I should say, are Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen. And Mark Victor Hansen was doing an event in LA. And so my boss and I flew out, and my boss was supposed to go on stage for something, and nobody could find him. And I had only been working for him for about 3 months. But Mark Victor Hansen's assistant said, I don't care how long you've been working for him, get on stage anyway, because he's got to be on stage right now and he's not here. And I did that, and my boss found out that I did a good job and said, Devon, I want you hosting all of our internal events from here on out. And so I just started hosting our company's internal events for free whenever we would do them. And other people would see me on stage and be like, hey, can you come do mine? Can you come do mine? And when I finally decided to own it and step into it, it wasn't long before I became one of the best in the world. So
you are. And I want to share with my listeners how we met, because that was at one of those events in London back in May of this year, 2023. And I was a keynote speaker and you were the MC at that event. And that was my first opportunity to get to see hands-on your energy and your ability to really keep that audience engaged. And it was no easy feat over the course of 3 full days of keeping the momentum going in that room. And one thing which was incredible to me was having you introduce me, because that just gave me the confidence. It gave me the energy to go out on stage and feel very relaxed as well, because of the way you had prepped the audience for me coming out. And I think that's really important, right? For as your role as an MC. But tell me a little bit about how you do that.
That is a great question, and probably one of the most important parts of my job that other people who MC get completely wrong. And so here's the challenge, and I'll tell it with a little story. A few years ago, I was asked to host an event, to MC an event for dentists. And dentistry is an industry I know nothing about. It's not my area of expertise. And so the night before the event, I get a stack of papers, and the event planners are like, hey, Devon, here are the introductions for all of the speakers. And I go and I'm looking through these papers, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. No introduction was less than 500 words. It was a bunch of medical terminology that I couldn't pronounce, nor did I understand. And this is the kicker, it was speaker focused, not audience focused. And so what happened was I had to learn to develop a methodology for introducing speakers that focused more on getting the audience excited than it did just on speaker accomplishments. Speaker accomplishments feed the speaker's ego, but what you as the speaker are going to share with the audience is what gets the audience excited. So if I focus on what gets the audience excited and then use your key points of your bio to buttress that, then they're going to be more excited for you and more eager to learn from you, which makes your job as the speaker a lot easier, right? Okay. So for you, it was great because I was already familiar with you. I had seen your YouTube videos. I had seen a lot of what you do. And as somebody who uses his voice for a living, I love what you do. And I appreciate and I understand the power of what it is that you do and what it is that you teach. So the way it looks is not Lisa Hugo is, XYZ and graduated from here and has this many degrees and has A, B, C, and D. Instead, it's how many of you in the audience understand that the more confident you are and the more effectively you can use your voice, the more success you're going to have. I do. Great. Well, if you understand that, how many of you would like to be more confident and more effective using your voice? I would. Great. Well, in that case, you are going to love this next speaker because she is the number one at this, and she's this, this, and this. And that's how I introduce people in such a way that gets the audience excited about you, which makes you more excited to go out there and share with them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. You're talking about then, and I'm listening to your voice and how you're bringing your voice down, and then you can bring it back out again. Talk a little bit about how you have learned to hone the different dynamics and the power in your voice.
Couple of ways. The first way is by just paying attention to great speakers. There are sometimes, and I'm sure you've noticed this, when you see somebody speaking on stage and you have to stop and be like, they are really captivating me. And as opposed to just being captivated by them, I step back and I'm like, why am I so captivated by you? What are you doing that's making me respond that way? Can I model that? Right? So that's the first way I've learned to do it. The second way I've learned to do it is, honestly, I kind of stumble across things on accident with audience feedback. And that's the great thing about being on stage a lot, is that you get feedback from the audience. And so I was at an event once, and this woman came up to me and she says, Devon, can I pull you aside for a second? I'm like, yes, ma'am. She says, I just got to tell you, you took us on a roller coaster. And I was like, what do you mean a roller coaster? She's like, well, sometimes you were up and sometimes you were down and you were never just at one level. And it made it really easy to want to pay attention to you. And I said, I didn't even realize I was doing that. Thank you so much. I'm going to be more conscious about that in the future. So those are two of the ways I've gotten good at that.
I love that, because this is exactly what I'm teaching all of my students as well, is to how to embrace the different varieties in their voice. And I call it the 5 elements of voice: your pitch, your pace, your melody, your volume, and your tonality. And how when you can mix them all together and have a full control and mastery over that, then you can control the outcome of every situation, because you can change up your voice. And one thing I notice with a lot of the people that I work with is they find it very difficult to get out of their comfort zone where they're very, stuck, and to explore beyond that, because it feels uncomfortable. So what advice would you have for my listeners?
So one of the things that I like to do, and I kind of fell into, and is to record yourself doing different things. What I've learned over the years is that how I think I look and I sound is different from how I actually look and sound, right? So the story I'm telling myself in my mind about how I look and sound is completely different from how I actually look and sound from the audience perspective. Yeah. And so a great way to test what Lisa is talking to you about is record yourself doing something outside of your comfort zone. Because in your mind, you're going to think to yourself, man, that is ridiculous. What am I doing? That's going to come across crazy. And then you go watch the video of yourself and you're like, oh, wow, that's not that bad. Oh, wow, I didn't realize such and such and such and such. And so when you record yourself, that is a fear-free, because you're the only one kind of judging yourself. That is a fear-free, which judging yourself is a whole other thing, but an environment in which to practice these new elements of getting outside of your comfort zone. So
yeah, and thank you for sharing that, because that's exactly the techniques that I would also tell people, is to record yourself and use different strategies to watch it back. Just listen, turn the phone over, don't even watch yourself, but listen. So you're tuning only into the sound, and then do the opposite and only watch yourself, and you see then what your body's doing without the sound. And then one of my favorite tips is to transcribe it. You get them to transcribe what they said. And then when they look at that back and try to reread it, it's like, oh, hang on. How many fillers, how many ums and ahs and likes and your nose, and no flow, no stops, no pauses, no full stops did I have in there, and do I ramble? And it's a very good way to assess and really help to improve your own skills, because the first way is to create that first awareness. And once you've got that awareness, then you can obviously then start to make those changes.
That is 1,000% correct. And being able to, in your first two tips about listen to yourself only, listen only to the audio, and then watch only the video, that is great. Like I was watching a video of myself being silly one time, and I didn't realize that the sound was muted at first. And I just thought my phone was broken. But what I was doing in this particular video was so engaging. I was like, oh my gosh, this is really good. I don't even know what I'm talking about. This is amazing. And you can see, or you sit there and say, wow, I listened to the audio and it sounded amazing. It sounded really excited, but now I'm watching myself on stage and there is no congruency there. I might need to check myself and to stop standing still and being right. So those two pieces of advice are beyond powerful and are exactly right. So yeah.
You started to tap into fear and nervousness and how that can hold us back. So what's your experience with stage fright? We call it stage fright. Other people would just call it nervousness, anxiety, going out on stage. And have you ever experienced that? Did you at the beginning, or were you just naturally charismatic? And if you did, how did you get yourself into the zone?
So the answer to have I experienced it or was I naturally charismatic? The answer to that is yes. I still experience it a little bit when I go out on stages, especially big stages, where I'm new, where the audience doesn't know me. I still experience it. So the first thing I'll say is being a little nervous or anxious or having stage fright is natural. So don't beat yourself up too bad about it. You're going to be the center of attention, right? For however long you're going to be the center of attention. There's an element of, okay, that just makes sense for you to be a little bit nervous. And I wouldn't be too harsh on myself. I've never been harsh on myself about the fact that I feel nervous. When the nervousness kicks up an extra notch, the first thing I do is acknowledge it. Like, wow, okay, that's what I'm feeling. Look at that. I must care a lot about that. Well, have I prepared myself? Yeah. Okay. Am I putting myself in a good spot? Oh, maybe I'm not doing that. All right, well, let me take a few deep breaths and I'll literally have a conversation with myself backstage. I look crazy, right? And the people at the event will be like, what's wrong with him? And be like, leave me alone. I'm talking to myself and having a positive conversation with myself. But with regard to fear, nervousness, anxiety, I find that a lot of it has to do with the conversation that we're having in our head, right? Before we go on stage. It has to do with the story that we're telling ourselves before we go on stage, the story we're telling ourselves about the audience, about what the audience is going to think about us, and all of those kinds of things. And so one of the things that I've learned to do is adopt a few key truths. And one of the key truths that I know is just true, that I always is my anchor, is that the audience wants you to do well selfishly. And what I mean by that is, let me ask you a question. Have you ever gone to a comedy show or a theater show and wanted the people on stage to do bad?
No, never.
Have you ever gone? No, you never, right? You've never gone to a comedy show and said, man, I hope this comedian sucks. You've never gone to a theater show or to a play or something and said, wow, you know what? I hope that person really messes up their lines and ruins the whole play. We've never said that. And the reason we've never said that is because selfishly, when I'm in the audience, the better the speaker or the performer does, the more I get out of it. So selfishly, I want you to do well. Which means that I'm in your corner. I'm not against you. I'm not judging you. At a fundamental level, I'm in your corner pulling for you. And so the first and the biggest thing that I say to myself is, remember, the audience is there and they are on your side, and they want you to do well, because selfishly, Devon, the better you do, the more they get from you. So they want you to do well. And so that's probably the first thing I say to myself. And then the second thing I do to myself, or the second thing I do, I should say, with regard to fear, is I do a lot of first person visualization. If I can be on the stage, I will literally go on the stage before I get up there. But if I can't, and I know what the stage looks like, I'll imagine myself on the stage. I'll imagine myself delivering my lines from the first person. So I'm not imagining, if this is me, I'm not imagining myself on stage. No. I'm seeing the audience through my own eyes, envisioning them laughing at my jokes, right? And doing a lot of first person visualization, because the more I practice something, the more my nervous system feels calm about the thing. So
makes total sense. Mm. Yeah. I just had a lost train of thought.
No, it's okay. All good. No, real quick on that.
Yeah, actually, that's a good one. When you lose thought, yes.
that's a great one. Can I tell you one of the things that so my job as an MC is often to stall for time, right? And one of the things that I have to get decent at is just making up stuff as I go along, right? And there are times when I will forget what I'm about to say or about to do. And I knew that I was getting comfortable on stage when I had the audacity to say to an audience of 2,000 people, oh my gosh, can I tell you guys something? I was supposed to say A, B, and C, and I've completely forgotten it, right? So hold on one second as I think about what I'm going to say. And I'm literally saying this to the audience, and they're loving it because it's human, because they've all been there. And when you can own and embrace your mess ups, and I put that in quote on purpose, when you can own and embrace your mess up and be like, ooh, I just messed up. Or I'll say to the audience, oh my gosh, did you hear me just stumble over my words? Cool. Can I get a quick redo? All right, thanks. And that's real, right?
That's so true.
And so the more you can embrace that, the more the audience is going to love you.
Yeah, audiences love vulnerability. They love it when you show your true self and your authentic self. Speaking of authenticity, a lot of my clients, they struggle with, when we're working on voice and working on getting them outside their comfort zone, they say, but now I'm no longer authentic. I'm not authentic. What would you say to that?
Who you are and who you can be are both authentic. It may, and just because something feels more comfortable right now doesn't necessarily automatically make it authentic. The question that I always ask people is, what is your come from? Who are you being and how are you being inside when you deliver whatever you're delivering? And so one of the things that I've learned is that there are ways to deliver certain ways of speaking, or to deliver certain actions on stage in a way that's authentic, and there's a way to do it in a way that's inauthentic. And how do I say this? It being inauthentic isn't in the action itself. It's where I come from when I do the action, right? Somebody says to me, well, Devon, I don't want to get on stage and dance because that's what you do. Well, okay, well, getting on stage and dancing is authentic for me. But guess what? Getting on stage and dancing isn't always authentic. Sometimes I'm forcing it. It's an authentic action for me, but sometimes I'm forcing it. And when my come from is that I'm forcing it, it's not authentic. And so what I would say is try it on for size without any judgment. So whatever you're telling them to do, right? Try it on for size without any judgment, right? Feel it and feel the parts of it that might be really authentic, that feel that, you know what? Saying it exactly this way, this is where I am. And Lisa wants me to be here, right? Making this up, right? And I get what she's saying. And I honestly feel room for myself to expand. Maybe it's not right here. Maybe it's over here. Right? And maybe I can take what Lisa's saying, try it on and saying, how can I do this in a way how can I project more in a way that is authentic, that doesn't make it sound like I'm screaming, right? How can I adjust my melody so that I'm more flowy as opposed to being staccato in a way that's more authentic for me. And so I would say it's a lot of just trying and massaging and feeling around, but I promise you it's in there. And if Lisa's telling you to do it, then she knows what she's talking about. So
thank you. Thank you. I want to talk about the difference between being an MC and being a speaker, a keynote speaker, because they're very different, aren't they? And the roles, what's required is really quite different. So, and you've been a public speaker before as well, right? I saw you've worked with Tony, or you've been on shared the stage with Tony Robbins and Les Brown and Rachel Hollis and a whole lot of other names that, you know, are those titans in the industry. So share a little bit about that side of it and the differences, the nuances between the two.
emceeing is way harder. Like real emceeing is way harder. Generally speaking, when you go on stage as a speaker, you're speaking about something that you're an expert at, right? You're giving a speech that in all likelihood, or on a topic, you're talking about a topic that in all likelihood you're extremely familiar with. You've probably given the speech a million times before, right? If you're established in the industry. And you go on stage for your 30, 45, 90 minutes, whatever it is, and you deliver what you deliver, you know, for the 15th time this year, or whatever it is. My job as an MC is way more fluid. My job is Roger Love, who's a great speaker coach in our industry. Roger described it really well. He was like, Devon, your job is threefold. Number one, my job is to be the tour guide for the audience, is to guide the audience through the event. So what I've got to do is I've got to stand up and say, hey, audience, you don't know me, but my job is to be your best friend along this journey for the next 3 days. I got to teach you how to get the most out of the event. I got to make sure that you're up, awake, and engaged. And I got to make sure that if a speaker comes on and they're horrible, right, I gotta guide you back to this land of energy and awakeness and awareness. So my first job is to guide the audience. My second job is to protect the event, right? So one of the hardest parts of my job, and one of the reasons that I get booked out so far in advance, is that when things go sideways at events, which they always do because events are living things, right? The AV is going to break. A video is not going to work in a presentation. A speaker is going to be delayed. Like those things just happen. But when those things happen, my job is to protect the event. And so my job is to go on stage and riff for 5 to literally 14 minutes, 40, right? While making it seem and feel like it's part of the event and like nothing is wrong. So I've got to protect the integrity of the event. And the last thing I have to do is I have to be the steward of energy. I have to be aware of and influencing of the energy in the event. And I've got to do that across not 45 minutes, which is, you know, average speaker time, but I've got to do all that across 3 days. And so emceeing is, in my opinion, infinitely harder, but I cannot be a good MC if I'm not a good public speaker. I cannot be a good MC if I don't know and understand much of what you teach about how to use the voice to influence the audience, how to use the voice to connect with the audience. Because you got to trust me, because whether you show up or not for the afternoon session has a lot to do with what I did the entire morning. So that's just some of but yeah, like given the choice, I would much rather be a speaker. From an ease perspective, I want a big challenge perspective, I'll MC it.
Yeah. And I've seen you in action, and you really are an absolute master at what you do. You recently were MC for Funnel Hacking Live. Now, you've done this a few times. Share a bit about that experience.
Funnel Hacking Live is an amazing event. For those of you who don't know, it's actually one of the biggest conferences every year in the internet marketing industry. So if you're an internet entrepreneur, if you're an internet marketer, Funnel Hacking Live is one of the events to be at. It's put on by a company called ClickFunnels, and ClickFunnels is owned by Russell Brunson, who's a pretty big name in the industry, and it's owned by a guy named Todd Dickerson. And I've known Russell and Todd for quite some time. I've actually known Russell since 2006, 2007. somewhere around there. And there have been 9 funnel hacking lives, and I've been blessed to be the MC for all 9 of them. This last one was just huge, it's like 5,000 people. But what happened was, if you remember, I told you that I started emceeing for the company I was working for, just internally for free, because my boss was supposed to go on stage for something, but they couldn't find him. So I had to go on stage in his place. And so my boss found out I did a good job, and he was like, Devon, why don't you MC all of our internal events? And I started doing that, even though I knew nothing about emceeing. But I started doing that. And one of the events I emceed, Russell was one of the speakers. I introduced Russell to the stage. And that's how I got to know Russell. This was back in 06, 07. And so the first Funnel Hacking Live, which was 2015, Russell, he calls me, or he hits me up on Facebook. He's like, Devon, what are you doing next week? And I'm like, I don't know, being awesome. He says, I got 600 people coming to Vegas. I forgot to hire an MC. Do you still do it? And back then I wasn't even I would just kind of MC here and there just because my friends would ask me to. I didn't really care. I was like, probably not. He was like, I'll pay all your expenses and you can come race Ferraris with us. And I was like, all right, cool, bet. Count me in. I'm your MC. And so I flew out, MC'd the first Funnel Hacking Live. And then from there, the rest is history. And that event went from 600 people to now over 5,000 people. And I'm just honored to be a part of such a high level event, because what goes into putting on that, from the event planners to coordinators to staging to lights to AV to lasers to smoke, just to be part of that production is always really humbling and really honoring. And if you've never been to Funnel Hacking Live, be sure to check it out.
Yeah, it's actually on my radar. I was hoping to go this year, but I had something else that I had to do at the same time. But I'm looking into it for next year. I know a lot of my friends go.
Yes. We have a bunch of mutual friends that go. Yeah.
So I can imagine this would have been something which would have given you the opportunity to really get exposure and escalate in your career thereafter. Yeah. I want to ask, what advice would you give to somebody who is aspiring to be an MC? How would they get started?
Great question. First answer. Number 1, get comfortable on stage. Get comfortable on stage. Get comfortable using your voice. When I MC, this is a little side note, and then I'll get back to the what to do. As the MC, one of my jobs, as I mentioned earlier, is to protect the event. And sometimes I have to protect the event from speakers who are not good speakers. Sometimes a speaker will go on stage and they will bring the energy down. They will be horrible, because I'll MC an event sometimes with 15 speakers, right? And just the law of averages tells me that one of them might be bad. And that's okay, right? It's like no harsh judgment. But what I've got to do is I've got to use my speaking skills now to overcome what that last individual just did in absolutely destroying the energy in the room. So the first thing I'll say is get good at speaking. Get good at learning how to use your voice in everything that Lisa teaches, because I use it often more than a lot of the speakers use it. I need to be better at it than a lot of the people who come up and speak for 30 or 45 minutes, right? I got to use it for 3 days. So the first thing is get good at your voice. Second thing I would say is understand that if you are going to be an MC, you've got to set your ego to the side. And this was one of the hardest things to learn, because naturally when I am on stage, when any human, but I'll speak about myself, when I am on stage, I want to be like, hi, I'm on stage. I'm Devon. Here's why I'm awesome. Here's where to contact me. Here's where to hire me, right? Here's all of this extra stuff that I know, right? And even at some events, I'll know more about the topic than the person speaking about it. And my ego wants to be like, I know more than this speaker, and I cannot do that. I can't. So if you're going to be an MC, you've got to humble yourself and understand that the event comes first, and your job as the MC is to big up whoever is speaking next, even if you know more than them. Like I have an internet marketing background. I've been online for 20 years. And so when I do a lot of these internet marketing events, I'll see somebody who has 2 years of internet marketing experience speaking about something. And be like, dude, you took my course 2 years ago. What? And that's okay. My job is still to be like, this person coming to the stage, woo, they are awesome, and showing that love. And then the third thing I'll say, if you're going to be an MC, is get really friendly with event planners. One of the biggest ways that I've gotten on a lot of the stages I've gotten on is because I've become friends with event planners. So event planners do a lot of events. So an event planner will have anywhere from, 5 to 20 events a year. And a certain number of those events might need an MC. And so as opposed to just trying to go to event to event to event, a smarter play is to go to the person who's got 20 events and then say, hey, and get to be friends with that person. Because back in the day when I first really started doing this, probably 60% of my gigs, 60% of my gigs came from event planners who had worked with me. And I'd done such a good job and I'd made their life so easy by not being a diva, right? Because they got to deal with divas all the time, right? Well, this speaker wants to move their slot and this, that, and the other. And my question is always, what can I do to help? What can I do to serve? What can I do to make your life easier? And now at the end of the event, they're like, all right, every time I have an event that needs an MC, I'm calling Devon first. So those are the three things I would say. Learn how to use your voice, understand, kick your ego to the side, put the event first, put the speakers first. And number three, become really good friends with event planners because they will be your key inside a number of events.
That's really good advice. What about, obviously you need a show reel. If you're going to be starting out and people don't know you, then you need a show reel to demonstrate what you're capable of. So let's say you haven't had a lot of experience yet. How would you put that together, or how would you showcase yourself?
Excellent. Oh, good question. So number one, what do you have, right? What footage, what images do you have? So I'm going to start with what I do have, and then I'll say, okay, I might want to I don't have a lot. Can I get a couple of professional headshots? Can I get a couple of professional things that make it look like I'm talking on stage, right? Can I rent a studio? Can I whatever? Or even better, and this is what I just had, this is what I was just talking about somebody doing, just to get footage of themselves, to get exposure, being on stage so that they can come from an authentic place when they talk about being on stage. Could you do one event for free? Could you do an event for free? Could you do a single day event for free? Right? And so let's say there's an event local area and you call them and you say, hey, I noticed you have a such and such event going on. I am an up and coming event MC. I was wondering if I could MC your event for free. Happy to meet with you beforehand just to show you who I am. I would love to help and serve. And right? Cool. And then I would go on stage, right? I would do the best I can and serve the event. But then I would also hire a videographer. And that's one thing that I used to do all the time when I would go to events, is I would hire a local videographer to follow me around with a camera and a video so that they could have it focused on me, right? And then what I would do is be like, hey, make sure you get me interacting with the crowd, because what people putting on events really want is they want you to have a positive impact on the audience. So it's less about you being awesome and more about your impact with the audience. So I'm like, well, make sure that if, for example, I'm having the audience all raise their hand, you get me leading the audience in raising their hand, right? And so I would have that person put footage on or record me. And then what I would do is I would have maybe 2 outfit changes or 3 outfit changes, right? And so now I've got myself in different outfits, so it looks like I'm doing things for more days and stuff like that. So you can take one event and make it look like you've been on stage 12 times or whatever. And then I would take that and I would put that all into my sizzle reel. The other thing I would do if I didn't know and I was just starting out, my guess is you probably have advice for them on this, but one of the biggest success secrets that I've learned over the years, and it's something that I didn't do at first, is go to the people with the answers and just copy the answers. So I would find Elisa Hugo and I would be like, Lisa, tell me what to put in my event reel, right? Or I would go to the people with event reels that really captured me and I'd be like, can I make something that looks like this, given the footage that I now have? That's what I would do, is just find the answer from somebody.
Yeah, it's all gold.
Mm-hmm.
I want to just spend a little bit of time getting to know Devon on the other side of the stage.
Okay.
You're on the road all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a very hectic schedule from what I've seen. And so there must be some downtime. And what do you do to keep yourself, to give yourself that relaxation, the mental awareness, the physical, because being on stage is physical. What do you do for yourself?
Yeah. So number one, I honor my downtime. And what I mean by that, it doesn't mean that I do the same thing every time. It just means I honor whatever's inside of me to do. So when I'm at home, So sometimes I'm on the road. I don't get to go to the gym as much as I would like to. Because sometimes the events I do are 6 in the morning to 11 at night. And then I wake up and I do the whole thing. And I just don't get my workouts in, just real talk. But when I'm at home, one of the ways I honor my downtime is I'm in the gym every day when I'm at home. It's like, this is my home routine. And I just recently got married. And so now it's a little bit harder because now I have somebody. I used to be like the singlest person ever. And so my alone time was very alone. But now I've got somebody else. But I've even had, my wife and I have conversations. It's like I'm on the road and she's been home alone. And then I come home and she's like, ooh, right? And I'm like, ooh, I need to go sit down and do nothing because I've spent the last 3 days giving to a bunch of strangers. And so it's a matter of having an adult conversation and an honest conversation and saying, how can we support each other? Right. And so the question I always ask myself is, what do I need to do for rest right now? What do I genuinely have in me? And whatever I genuinely have in me is okay. What do I have in me right now? Nothing. I need to watch TV and I need to binge watch something for 7 hours. That's okay. What do I have in me right now? Well, you know what? I've got 2 weeks off, which is rare. I really want to work on my new online business that's teaching a lot of this stuff so that I can spend less time on the road. Okay, let me honor that, right? Man, I have not worked out. I have not eaten well. I've been on the road. Like I'm about to go to the UK and then I fly back home, switch planes and fly to Houston and I'm gone for a week or whatever. And that's going to be crazy. It's overseas. It's 7 time zones or some nonsense like that. I rest when I can rest. I play when I can play. I unplug when I can unplug. I work out when I can work out. And then I honor whatever I'm feeling. And I try to have that balance. So
I can imagine. And congratulations. I met your lovely wife.
You did.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll tell you, one of the things, people come up to her all the time because she'll come with me to events maybe 40% of the time, depending on the event. And people will come up to her all the time and they'll say, wow, it must be a blast living with Devon. He is so exciting on the stage. And she's like, this is for you. This is like, she'll tell people that like, I'm boring at home. I'm super boring. I'm like Captain Decompress when it comes to just being at home. Yeah. So,
and that's interesting that you say that, because I don't think people understand that when you go out on stage, you do have to become a character. It's really not dissimilar to being an actor or being a performer. You have to give to your audience. And so when you're off that stage, you could be an introvert. When you go out on that stage as an introvert, you need to find that charisma, the ability to be able to present well. But when you go off stage, you don't have to be that person. You can go back into your introverted place and be very comfortable.
Correct. Yeah, it is a switch. It is a switch that I've learned to flip on. And naturally, I'm more naturally extroverted, but I've learned the power and the importance of being introverted. So for all my introverted friends out there, what you have and the way you are is extremely valuable. And you can be that, and you can still rock the stage. Because when I get off the stage, I'm like, ooh, can I sign up for introverted right now? Because count me in for that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your course. You also are mentoring other people to become better speakers, better MCs. Tell us a little bit about that side of you.
Yeah. So like I said, I've been in the internet marketing. I've been an internet entrepreneur for going on 20 years now. And so I have one course that is already launched and one course that, depending on when you're watching this, may or may not be launched. We've been actually working on it all this week. The first course is called Awesome on Stage, the Masterclass. And it is all my advice for people who want to become better at public speaking. And what I go over in that course is I go over what I call the 4 C's of public speaking. And they are how to be more confident on stage, how to be more connected on stage, how do you connect to the audience, how to be composed on stage, especially when things go sideways, and how to be more captivating on stage. So connection, composure, confidence, and captivation. Those are what I call the 4 C's of public speaking. And the Awesome on Stage Masterclass course focuses on those 4 C's. And what I'm in the process of creating and launching now is a course called Express MC. And basically what I do is in just about 2.5 hours, I teach you all of the core stuff that you need to know if you're going to host or MC an event. Like I've been doing the first time I hosted or MC'd an event was 2005 or 2006, right? So almost 20 years. So what are the most important lessons that I've learned over the past 20 years? And I teach them to you in one afternoon. And then eventually what I'm working on for later on down the road. So and both of those, by the way, are available at awesomeonstage.com under courses.
And we'll put this in the show notes as well so they can easily access. Yeah.
Awesome. And then one of the things I'm working on, the biggest thing I'm probably working on more long-term is I'm having an agency for MCs. I've got so many gigs that I cannot do. I'm turning down gigs left and right. And so there are people who are struggling to find gigs, and me, I'm turning them down. And I literally had somebody a couple of weeks ago say, Devon, I know you're not available. I know we can't afford you. Do you have anybody you personally trained that you could send? And I did, and I sent them, and it went amazing, and the event was beyond happy. And so I'm going to be working on having more of an agency where I can train future MCs and be like, here you go, here are gigs that I can't do.
That's awesome. So we're going to put all of the links in the show notes, like I said. And what about social? Where can people find you on social?
Yeah, so you can go to Awesome On Stage on Instagram, or _Devon, DEVON _Brown as well. And then YouTube is devonbrown.tv. So
okay. And you give out some really good tips in your platforms on your social as well. So definitely worth following you. I want to end with some rapid fire questions if you're up for it.
Done.
Yeah?
Yes.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
These are going to be pretty obvious, your answers, some of them, but let's give it a try.
Okay.
Texting or talking?
Ooh. Yes. Both. I'm both a texter and a talker, believe it or not. I don't know. I am 50-50.
Interesting, because I thought you'd be a definite talker.
Yeah, no. I'm cool with text. Yeah, I'm 50-50.
Okay. Favorite day of the week?
Ooh. Here's interesting. I don't have days of the week. My schedule is so crazy that I never know what day it is.
That's a good
Saturday if I had to pick, but half the time I'm on stage on Saturday, so I never know what day it is.
Good point. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite city in the world that you've been to or been on stage in? Or you have a personal attachment to?
Yeah. Oh, Phoenix, Arizona, or Scottsdale, Arizona is a pretty cool city. Arizona as a state is pretty cool. I don't really have a favorite. I've been on a lot, and I'm like, okay, I have a bunch that I don't really like, but I'm not going to say those. But as far as a favorite, I would say any city in Arizona is up there pretty high. Arizona.
Yeah, I've never been to Arizona yet. Favorite artist?
Musically or otherwise?
Musically.
Probably Michael Jackson. I mean, if you just Mike I'm 44 years old.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, I'm 44 years old. So I was born in 79. And so, growing up as a child of the 80s, Michael Jackson had the probably the biggest influence on music. And I'll tell you who else, MC Hammer, because I didn't realize I could dance until Hammer came out. And then when Hammer came out, the types of moves he was doing, I could mimic really well. And that's what made me realize I could dance. So Michael Jackson or MC Hammer.
Okay, this is an interesting one. Yeah. Would you rather speak all the languages of the world or be able to talk to animals?
All the languages of the world.
Yeah.
I would find it so interesting to be able to connect with human beings and learn from human beings whose experience of this thing called life is just so drastically different from mine. And I would find that beyond insightful. The animals thing is definitely interesting, though. The innate connection to nature that is an animal would be like, but I think that all the languages in the world. Yeah.
Do you speak any other language?
So, my Spanish is pretty. So my mother's from Jamaica, and in Jamaica they speak patois, and so I understand it fluently, but I don't speak a lick of it. It's hilarious. Like I understand it fluently, but trying to speak it, I sound ridiculous. My Spanish is decent. Like you can stick me in the middle of a Spanish-speaking country, and I would be okay. And I get in a lot of trouble because I'll say stuff in Spanish really well, and then a fluent Spanish speaker will think I'm fluent and say it back to me. I'd be like, time out, don't understand a word you just said. So yeah.
It's like my kids, they understand German, but when it comes to speaking it back, I think they choose not to. They're not confident to. Anyway. This is going to get you vulnerable. What's your biggest weakness?
So I'm trying to think of the answer. So we've been in this world of this conversation has a lot to do with the stage and speaking. And so I'm thinking from that perspective, but I'm also trying to break myself out of that and think. But I would say that I'm going to sound a little egotastic. My biggest weakness over the years has been putting limits on myself.
That's good.
On what I can do and what I can be, is probably one of them. And a lot of people would look at me and say, well, Devon, look what you've accomplished. You're in a lot of circles, you're considered the #1 MC in the world. How have you limited yourself? And I'm like, well, I've limited myself because I don't even know how much I've tried to do this thing that I'm doing. And if I were to actually put effort into it, or not limit what I was, I've said to myself a lot, well, I'll only do this, but not this thing over here. And if I would open myself up to more and be conscious about doing more, I think that would, and take limits and say to myself, okay, well, whatever's meant to be, I'm gonna lean into it and play it out fully. A lot of times I'll play, that's a way of phrasing it. A lot of times I'll play half-ass because I know that my half-ass in certain areas of life is better than most people's full out. And I can get away. There's a saying, they say the biggest obstacle to a great life is a good life. And I know that I can achieve good life relatively easily. And so sometimes I settle. So
that's actually good advice.
Yeah.
Is it what you say or how you say it that matters most?
How you say it. How you say it. I use this all the time, and this is something we talked about earlier. It's like, it's your come from. Where are you coming from? Like, I can tell a friend of mine who is overweight that they are fat, and I can say it from a place of joking, right? And making fun of their weight, or I can say it from a place of, I care about your life so much that if you are not here, it is going to upset me. And I can say the same thing, the same words, and have them mean profoundly different, have them have profoundly different impacts based on how I'm saying that and where my come from is.
Interpretation because of how you
right.
speak it.
Like, I can say the same thing with hate, and I can say the same thing with love. And so how I'm saying it is so, yeah.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
You know what? I've actually thought about this one a lot.
Okay.
And I'm torn. And I think my final answer would be the power of the Flash. The Flash has ridiculous super speed. He's the fastest man alive. He's the fastest human. He travels faster than the speed of light. And so I think having super speed would be awesome, not just because I could just run from Atlanta to London in under 3 seconds to make it to my event and not have to, right? But I could also travel faster than the speed of light and travel back in time. But also what would be super cool is that I could literally go to Barnes & Noble, pick up any book, and finish the entire book in a half a second, which means that I could learn anything in just like that.
Oh,
that would
cool.
be awesome. Yeah.
Okay, speaking of books, last question. Do you have a book that you would recommend?
I have a few, but one of my favorites is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. Psycho-Cybernetics, if you're not familiar with it, is an OG personal development book. A lot of what we know today about the self-image and how we look at ourselves and view ourselves, and a lot of the personal development experts teach today came from Maxwell Maltz's Psycho-Cybernetics, one of my favorite books.
It's one of my favorites too.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's been awesome having you on the show, Devon. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your insights, your knowledge, your expertise, your experiences, and being vulnerable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been my pleasure. I'm so glad you texted me. I'm so glad we met, and I can't wait to share the stage with you again. And I'm so honored that you would have me. And yeah, so just thank you.
Yeah, and thank you too. Well, what an inspiring session with the Devon Brown. I thoroughly enjoyed that interview. I found it valuable. I learned things, and he's got an infectious energy, right? So I hope that you also found it as valuable or even more so for you, and you've got a lot of takeaways. Let me know down below in the comments, what was your biggest takeaway? And if you really found value in this episode, then hit the subscribe button and hit the like button. You can follow us on all podcasting platforms, and we'll leave the links to the show notes below. That's it for me, and I'll see you in the next episode.